I will share with you my journey. I will share with you what I have done with my curiosities, and I hope that something about my story will allow you to give yourself permission. So, when I was 8, I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't have any special lawyers in my life that made me want to be a lawyer. But we had only 3 options back then. I'm a millennial, so we have back then. We say back then now. There was doctor, there was lawyer, there was accountant, at best, right? If you want to be creative, you can go to architecture. And I took stock of what I had. I hated the sight of blood. I wasn't ever present in maths class. And I loved to read. So that was the only qualification I had to pick a career, and so I picked law. I went on to secondary school at 14. Not like I went to secondary school at 14, but when I was 14, I joined the debate team in secondary school. Now, I joined the debate team because that's what lawyers did. Lawyers read, lawyers write, lawyers debate. So I joined the debate team. It didn't matter that I was terrified of speaking in front of people. I was going to be a lawyer, so I was going to do what lawyers did. One of my core memories still is, going to another school with the debate team, and I was called upon to debate. I took the stage. I took a deep breath. I was getting ready to give them some serious heat. And I opened my mouth and I debated in favor of the opposing team. I still remember the look on my English teacher's face as I was standing up there, and she was just shaking her head. And I knew that nobody would ever let me on a stage again. And in truth, they didn't. But thankfully, I found my way back. I still went on to read law, regardless of all of the things that were telling me not to. I went to law school. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 2017. Now, the problem at that point is that I was 6 months pregnant. I was happily married to a lawyer as well. But there was no practicing law at 6 months pregnant. At the very best, you could read, you could, whatever you can do, but practicing was out of it at the time. So, another curveball, another pivot. I was at home for the next 12 to 15 months. That child is 7 now, by the way. By the time the child was 1 and I was ready to go back into the workforce, I was ready to be Olivia Pope. I was ready to, COVID hit. And we were stuck at home for 2 years. Where do you study law at home with a 1-year-old and with the entire country, the entire world on lockdown? So I sat down and looked at myself and looked at all of the things I had tried and failed, because I had been trying, right? I'd been trying my hand at small businesses because they say we should try small businesses. But those businesses never took off. And in hindsight, it was because nobody ever told me to look for my brilliance. I was just doing something, right, in the interim. So those 2 years of COVID, I leaned into curiosity. I took stock, yet again, like I did at 8, of what I had in my hands. And what I had was a love for reading. I had a love for research, if it interests me. I was interested in the internet, so I started digging in. I started personal development on one hand, because I wasn't proud of my journey up until that point. And then I started reading and writing on the internet. So that was where that started. Now, what that tunnel led me down is I started creating. And a lot of us are creators here, am I right? We are creating something or the other. I started creating. I started telling my story. I started learning how to tell stories the right way. And that led to my first online business, which led to the second online business, which led to the podcast, which led to the book, which led to coaching, which led to consulting, which led to Enterprise and Heals, which led to the business development conferences that we hold. And all of that was on the back of curiosity, on the back of realizing I do have something special, but nobody is going to come and tell me how to use it. Nobody is going to come and give me express permission to use it. And it was only the permission that I gave myself to try and fail and fail and fail a lot that was going to get me what I was looking for. Looking back, I realized at 8, I didn't really want to be a lawyer like that. I just wanted to be important, and I wanted my voice to be heard. And thankfully, we're on the right track. And I'm able to help other people do that as well in the world. The reason I believe I'm standing here before you now is that I gave myself permission, and that is what I want us to really look at. Many of us are waiting for permission from somebody. We're waiting for permission from our parents, we're waiting for permission from our friends, we're waiting for permission from our bosses, we're waiting for permission from, I don't know, where are you looking for permission from? Because I promise you, all of these people can give you permission, and if you don't give yourself permission, you're not going to do anything with what you have, right? So let's look at what invisible brilliance really is. At the core of it, for me, I was easy to talk to, and I knew how to break down simple concepts. I know some people who are brilliant with finance, who can, they can quickly cook up numbers, and they're not even educated. If you check, some of the most brilliant people you know don't really have the degrees. They don't have the titles. They don't have the fancy office, but they get things done, right? And that is something that I want us to really look at again today. Your invisible brilliance might have nothing to do with a title. And what is keeping you stuck could be that you feel like you need the title to move. Meanwhile, when you move and you give yourself permission, the titles will follow you. You will have titles to choose from. At least that is what I've learned in my journey. Right? So when you find that invisible brilliance, what do you do with it? One of the best ways that I've found to let go of the things that you create is to teach it. I was speaking with my fellow speaker here, and she says she's a lecturer. And I remember when it was time to decide career options, lecturing came up, and again, I was too afraid to stand in front of people and speak. So lecturing was not even an option for me. But I teach every day now. I show up and I teach what I know, because at some point, again, I gave myself, this is a word we have to hold on to with all of our hearts. Every time it is time to put something out, it is time to reach out to somebody, it is time to send that email, make that call, pitch yourself. It's going to require you to give permission over and over again. It is not the one permission that I gave myself 6 years ago that has allowed me to get here. It is several points of permission. When it was time to start a podcast, I had to give myself permission because everything was telling me people like me don't do things like that. When it was time to write my book, the same thing. Something there was telling me, who do you know that has written something like this? What makes you think it could be you? I'm here to tell you it can be you. As a matter of fact, it is you. Because you don't need external permission to be who you already are. You just need to give yourself permission to let it out, right? So teaching is one of the best ways and quickest ways that you can figure out your place, your niche, your place in the industry that you've decided to operate in. When you teach, it forces you to organize your thoughts. Because you can understand it in your head. Have you ever tried to explain something to someone that was so clear in your head, but by the time it starts coming out, it's not looking like what was in your head? That's what teaching forces you to do. So when you train your mind, and your mind understands whatever this thing is that's going on, I'm going to have to learn how to pass it on, your brain starts to move different. I was explaining today, when I'm going to an event like this, we're seeing a lot of content creators. I have made it an obligation. I have an obligation to the people that learn from me for me to tell them my process. So I know that this is a story I will eventually tell. When I will tell it, I don't know. Where I will tell it, I don't know. YouTube, podcast, next book, email, social media, but I do know there's going to be a story at some point. And so when I move, I'm organizing in my head. And it is a matter of practice, right? And there's somebody here that's telling themselves, my life is not that interesting. My life wasn't interesting when I started telling stories. When I started putting my ideas out there, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. But that builds you, it builds your storytelling abilities. It builds whatever else that you will find. I didn't know that I could host conferences when I started this journey. I just knew that I was curious and I wanted to know how successful people were doing it. You're here because you're curious. That means we're made of the same stuff. That means you're made of the same stuff as everybody that's going to take this stage. Again, permission. Just give yourself permission. So, teaching, right? When you know you're going to teach, you're going to be forced to organize. You're going to be forced to simplify. Now, there are some of us whose brands are not going to be built via teaching. It will probably be built by documenting. Because you don't want to come out and say, oh, hey, come learn from me. But by giving yourself permission, you're giving somebody else permission. And that is impact. That's how impact works. If by doing, somebody feels like they can too, that will be counted under your number of impact. You're not the one that's doing the counting. You're not the one that's doing the counting. You will never know how many people's lives you will change. Your job is just to do what you can while you can do it. So, if it is documenting, what you're looking at, like I said earlier, is storytelling. You're looking at how you're going to express, I tried this way, it didn't work out, so I tried the other way. One of the people who does that brilliantly is Tad. She documents her process and she shares it for us. And I might never run a food business, let me be honest with you. But I follow her and I see how it's done. And maybe it shows me I can never do it, but I still enjoy it. But there is somebody out there whose brilliant thing is probably in the food industry. And it is by Tad giving herself permission that they will give themselves permission to, right? So you can document your process. What you can also do is shine a light on it. It is incredibly conceited to think that somebody will give themselves permission to write their story and make you the star of the show. Like, who do you think you are? One of my favorite quotes that I also put in my book is by Chinua Achebe. Until the lion learns to write, all of the stories will glorify the hunter. I will not do the inner work of giving myself permission, getting over my limiting beliefs, doing the work of telling the story, and then come and tell your perspective. That's just not how it works. So you are going to have to take charge of your narrative. You're going to have to take charge of your story. One of the things that I have learned again on this journey is that I was never too young. We had this belief that we were too young, that 16 was too young, 18 was too young to get serious. I remember at some point being intentional about people not thinking I was serious. I was very intentional about it. It was very important for me that I was seen as a cool person. And cool people don't worry about books. They don't, right? I was misguided. And because nobody around me told me different, I believed it until I did the work to change that perspective. I don't know where you are in your journey right now, but I promise you it is not too early. It is not too late. You are not too different. And maybe you are, and that's a very good thing. That's a very good thing. I hope I've spoken to somebody today. I hope I have shown you that regardless, and everybody needs a regardless. Everybody needs a regardless. I want you to write that down if you have anywhere. What is my regardless? We see success stories every day, and they tell you, I did it regardless. I went to school regardless. I got the job regardless. I started the business regardless of the fact that I didn't have money. I got the job regardless of the fact that I didn't have the international qualification. I got to speak regardless of the fact that I was not the best speaker. I did this regardless. If you don't have a regardless, you won't have a story. Right? Because a story is usually starting point, what the hero fights and conquers, and then where they end up. So you're the hero of your story, and we all have a regardless. Regardless of the fact that I didn't have parents that encouraged me. Regardless of the fact that all my friends at some point were just unsupportive. Regardless of the fact that, I don't know, please fill in your regardless. But find it because it's there. And that regardless is how some people say, I can't do it because you're going to say, I did it regardless. Right? And then finally, before I leave, I want to leave you with this story, not my original story. I listened to Jim Rohn a lot. And he gave this story of two salesmen who were about to go out in the morning, but it was raining heavily. And one of the salesmen said, oh, it's raining. Right? Nobody can fault me if I don't go anywhere. And the second salesman looks at the weather, looks at the rain and thinks, oh, great, it's raining. Number one, not a lot of salesmen are going to be outside. And number two, everybody will be inside, so if I knock on their door, they will be home. I don't know what your story is, but it is in your hands, and I promise you that if you give yourself permission to do all you can with everything that you get in this room and from the amazing speakers that are going to come on this stage, you're going to be so proud of yourself, and I am proud of you in advance. Thank you.